Welcome to the raw and uncensored Ambitchious Podcast. During our time here together, I will be instilling all of the strength, power, and determination you will need to use the very stones thrown at you to build your ultimate empire. We will redefine the word bitch from the derogatory to the acronym being in total control of herself. So let's adjust our crowns and prepare to live life ambitiously.
Yeah, here I am, the original HBIC, Katie motherfucking Boyd. And on today's episode of the Ambitchious Podcast, we're going to be talking about how to reparent your inner child, or the child that you lost to your parentification as a young person. So first off, I want you to listen. If you haven't already, go back and listen to last week's podcast, because you have to have that context to then say, okay, I have a problem, and this is something that I've been dealing with, and I didn't know that this is what it was called. I just thought I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and I was a crazy ass bitch. But I realized it's because I had this thing happen to me growing up, and now it's time to reparent that lost child, or reparent the inner child. So today, I'm just going to give you some just like really just easy tools to recognize and little things to do, small things. This is not earth-shattering, groundbreaking. This is not brain surgery, rocket science. This is just like really easy tools. So first off, if you can relate to anything on that last list, which I'm like, who can't, who can't relate to, like, I think I had almost every one of those things. And I don't know off the top of my head, but I think there was like 20 things, right, to really show that you are a parentified daughter. So if you can relate to any of those things on last week's podcast, it may be truly helpful to get in touch with your inner child and allow yourself to experience thoroughly that part of you that is inside. She's just really down deep. She's in the cave, and you got to pull her out. And the playful part of the inner child is usually the part that gets crushed through parentification. And this part deeply desires to have spontaneous fun and live a life free from guilt and shame and resentment and anxiety and depression and just all the things that I talked about on last week's podcast. So how are we going to get in touch with her? How are we going to reparent that inner child that was lost through the parentification that happened to you as a young child? So the first thing is kind of obvious, but obviously it's not, because if it was, everyone would be doing it. The first thing is to become aware, to accept that you have an inner child in the first place and that you desire to get to know her. Because it's like a part of you that lives with you that you don't know. Could you imagine if you were in an apartment or you owned a home and there was just like this person living with you that you had no idea who they were, what they liked, what their names were, what their dislikes were, what makes them tick, what makes them feel joy, what makes them effervescent and bubbly. Could you imagine? Like, that would be crazy. It's like you're living with a total stranger. And I'm here to tell you that that is what you're doing when you are not getting in touch with your inner child. And you have to take this part of you seriously. And you have to take her voice seriously. And you have to understand that whether you like it or not, whether you acknowledge her or not, she is there with you. So that's the first thing, is the acknowledgement and becoming aware that she is there and she exists. And then the second thing I want us all to do, and I'm doing it too, and I have done this work already, but I continue to do it every day, is getting to know what your inner child deeply needs, what she truly desires. And the thing is that, many kids grow up learning that their needs aren't important, or they need to squash them in order to survive. And listening to yourself and acknowledging your needs can be a totally foreign concept. And what we did not receive from our caregivers as children is often exactly what we need as adults. So I always tell this story, and I'm not going to get too in depth with it because I want to always respect my mom and dad, and I don't want to start a big brawl between us all because it's just not worth it. But I will tell the story, just not in all of its gritty details. So when I was probably about 4 or 5, my dad had come home from drinking, and my mom was just so mad, and she was just like pacing the floor and just like, I'm gonna kill him. And I was little, I was probably like 4 or 5 years old, and my dad came home, and my mom and him like got into it, and they started like screaming at each other, and then they got physical, and then I got in the middle of them, and they fell. Like I kind of got tangled up in their feet, and then they kind of like stumbled on me, and I remember like they fell on me, and I was little, and it hurt. And I don't know like what had happened because obviously I was like 4 or 5 years old, so I don't know like all the logistics, but I remember like I had this like little playroom at the end of the hall in the house that I grew up in. And I remember like lying on this like little couchy thing in there. And for some reason, I don't know if like my mom called my Nana, my dad's mom, who was like very close to me. I don't know what happened, but my grandmother ended up coming over after this altercation. And I just remember like laying on this little bed cot thing, and I was in pain, and I was just like, oh my God, what the fuck? And my grandmother looked at me, and she said, Katie Elizabeth, I want you to listen to me. And I was like, okay, because I've respected her so much. And she says, whatever happens in this house, we never tell anyone. We don't like air out the family's dirty laundry. So as a child, and listen, I am not mad at her. I'm not mad at my mom and dad. I love them all. But when you're a child and someone who you love and who's supposed to protect you and you respect and is a caregiver of yours, and my grandmother was really like my third caregiver. I was always with my grandmother. So when someone like that says something like that to you as a child, like, what do you think about yourself? You think about yourself is your pain doesn't matter. Your voice doesn't matter. And no one's going to believe you anyways if you do tell people what's really, truly going on behind closed doors. So just like, fuck it. Don't even bother. And so then as an adult, I remember like always not embellishing, but always like going to the places that were always like the beauty and the fun and the glam and like whatever. I never talked about the dark, bad shit that I went through. Even as an adult in my own personal life, I always just was like, oh, everything's great. And, the guy I'm dating is amazing. And my business is amazing. And I'm amazing. And everything is amazing, because I just was like, and it's not that I was hiding it. It's just that I just was taught at a young age, like, it doesn't matter. So just don't waste your breath, always just be positive. And that can work for only so long. And then you get to a place in your life where you're just like, I'm not fucking happy. This isn't right. I feel trapped. I don't feel like I'm enough. I did battle depression and anxiety and all these different things. And it wasn't until I had like my real spiritual awakening about, 15 years ago that I was like, oh my God, I can't keep living like this, because it was actually making me physically ill. Like I was having physical manifestations of things that I had held down so deep in my soul, so deep in my physical body, that it had nowhere to go. So it had to come out somehow. So usually it comes out in our bodies as illness and sickness and disease. And I don't know about you, but ain't no one got time for that. So we have to listen to what we need. And as an adult, I want the people around me to really hear what I'm saying. Like I've noticed a lot of people lately, they'll talk to me and they'll say things like, well, you're an adult now, so like that shouldn't bother you. Or I'll say something and they'll say like, oh, no, you don't really mean that. And I'm like, yeah, I fucking do. I don't fucking say shit that I don't mean. So don't put words in my mouth and don't try to manipulate the way I feel, because being vulnerable and speaking my truth is how I heal as an adult. And if you want to get out of my life real quick, you want to exit out of my life real quick, act like that, and you will fucking Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. That's all I'm saying. So again, many kids grow up and learn that their needs aren't important, or they need to squash them in order to survive. And listening to yourself and acknowledging your needs can be a totally foreign concept. But what we did not receive from our caregivers as children is often what we need. Okay. So I know I said that twice, but I want it to really seep in, and I want it to really permeate your mind. The next thing that we have to do to heal ourselves as parentified children is, and this is really difficult, okay? We have to take radical responsibility. And you have to recognize the pain of not having your childhood needs met. You have to recognize that it isn't and wasn't fair, and it hurt and it cut you deeply. And now you're the adult, and you're the adult saddled with the responsibility of reparenting yourself. And it's okay to say it wasn't fair. And it's okay to wish that it was different. But it is not okay to stay in the quagmire. It's not your fault what someone did to you and what you endured, but it is your responsibility to fix it and heal from it as an adult. And I have no room and no empathy or sympathy in my life for anyone who knows and doesn't try to fix those things. Okay. So part of my healing is talking to people about it. So like when people ask me a question and I tell them the truth, I tell them the truth about my childhood. I tell them the truth about my trauma. I tell them the truth about things that happened to me as a young adult and things that shaped me and made me distrustful of people and made me a hyper vigilant adult woman, and made me not be able to truly experience joy. I don't know how else to explain it, but when it's almost like you're fucking like a zombie and you're just going through the motions. And I don't want to feel that way anymore. And I don't think that you out there in Ambitchious Land want to feel that way either, if this is you that I'm talking to and about. The next thing that we have to do is we have to become a parent, and we have to befriend that inner child. We have to take inventory on what we didn't receive as children and what needs still have to be met. And this is obviously different in every one of you out there. And maybe, you didn't have a lot of structure as a child. So you may need a lot of structure now. Maybe you had entirely too much structure, right? You lived in almost like a military household as a child. And now all you desire is freedom. It's really funny because I didn't realize this until a handful of years ago, where I am a organization psychopath and I'm a clean freak, and I will happily spend a weekend of at my home by myself with my dog and my husband, just cleaning and organizing and just streamlining things. And a lot of people will be like, "Oh God, Katie, that's just such a waste of your life. Like, go out and do something fun." And to me, the cleaning and the organization is fun because it gives me this feeling of control, and it helps me have instant gratification, because I never felt like I had instant gratification as a child. And I never felt like I had a lot of control, because my whole entire life revolved around what was happening in my parents' lives. So if my parents were happy, I could be happy. If my parents were not happy, I couldn't be happy. And so when I was a child, and you can ask my mother this, I would rip my whole entire bedroom apart once every couple of weeks, and rearrange all the furniture and clean out my closet and make sure everything was perfectly polished and Windexed, and my closet, all the hangers were going the same way, and everything was color coordinated, and everything was just sitting a certain way and tilted a certain way. Even today, if someone touches something in my gym or someone touches something on my desk, I will move it back to where it needs to go instantly, because it just gives me, in Portuguese, we call it agonias. It just gives me anxiety. Okay. But I realized that the reason why I'm like that today is because the cleaning and the organization, it helped me feel some semblance of control in an out of control environment, and that's my story. That may not be your thing. But another thing is that freedom. I remember when I was younger, and I'm I can't wait to get out of this house. I'm never coming back. That's how ask my mom, once a week I would run away. I would pack that. I had this little red suitcase that had a little picture of a little girl with her little dog and her suitcase, and it said like going to grandma's house. And I would like take my little red suitcase and I would like put like patent leather shoes and like Doritos and like Capri Suns in there and like a pudding cup. And then I would like run away down the street with like a fur coat and like a fur muff. Oh my God. And those like white little socks with like the little lace little foldovers on them. Like, what the hell did I need that when I was going to run away? Like, I needed something probably like for being out in the cold and whatever. But I was like 5 and I was like, fuck this house, I'm out of here. And I would run away, and then I would like a little fat porker, I would eat like all the stuff in my, overnight suitcase. And then I would be like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm going to go back home. But I feel like that today. Like if I'm in something for too long, or the people around me kind of are bossy or too like authoritative around me, I bolt. And I know that that's something that's not healthy, and I'm working on it all the time. But people have to understand, like when someone comes from a household like that, like a lot of things carry over into their adult lives, right? So we have to start really understanding what our inner child needs to start feeling the control, or feeling the freedom, or feeling the joy, or the happiness, or the whatever. Okay. And only you can pinpoint that part of yourself out there in Ambitchious land, because again, I'm not you, you're not me. I can only speak for my own self, right? The next one is we have to find ways to honor our inner child consistently. Okay. And I'm going to talk about that next. But it's just something that you do every day that makes you feel safe and enough and special and validated and seen, or whatever you're craving. Okay. So for a lot of people, here's some of the things that our inner child may need. And I'm going to also tell you like how to provide that, because these are the things that I'm doing for myself. So number one, you may be that type of person who didn't have a lot of structure growing up. It was like your parents were never home. You had to be super self-reliant, hyper-vigilant, very, you had to hold the shit down, right? So now you're really craving that structure. You need like every day to know this is what I'm doing when. And I mean, I'm like that too, to a point. Like I always have to have like every day I have like my little to-do list. And if I don't have my to-do list done, I don't even know what I'm doing. I actually become physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically paralyzed if I don't have like a list of shit that I need to do that day. Because if not, I will literally just like take a gummy and drink a bottle of wine and watch Netflix all day. And I'm not trying to make you guys laugh. Like that's like the bad devilish side of me. That's what she wants to do. It's not going to help me be successful. It's not going to help me like live my best life, obviously. But I have to have that to-do list. So structure. Creating structure in our everyday lives through routine and scheduling, and having like set times to do things like this is my bedtime. This is when I wake up. This is when I work out. This is when I meditate. This is when I pray. This is when I clean. This is when I do the laundry, like whatever it is. And I know that's like, oh God, all work and no play make Jane and Jill or whoever a dull girl or whatever. Yes. So what? Sometimes you need that to reparent that inner child. And we have to commit to things, and we have to follow through on them. And children who were parentified were often forced to create structure for others, or ignored their own needs in order to maintain the status quo. So we must find ways to create structure that is meaning to you and it feels safe. Because it's another thing too, when you're a parentified child, especially if you grew up in a household where there was abuse or addiction, you tend not to feel safe. Like I have never, ever in my life felt 100% safe. The only person that helps me feel safe in my life is my husband. And that's why I want to be around him all the time, because he is like my safety blanket. And I know that that's probably like another codependent relationship that I'm in, but it's a healthy one. And that's what makes me feel good. And so be it, right? Que sera, sera. The next one is we have to find ways to play and exercise our freedom. So we have to add moments of safe play into our everyday lives. We have to maybe go for a run, or lay on the grass, or take a class at the gym, or just do something that resonates with you and it makes you feel alive. Like for me, it's gardening, it's cooking. I know it sounds crazy, but it is cleaning. It is organizing because it helps me just feel safe. It's going to the gym. It's spending time doing philanthropic work. It's being around people that I really trust, right? That's so important to me. The next thing that we have to do is we have to identify the things that drain us. I could tell you a million things right now that drain me. And a lot of people will fight me on it and they'll say, oh, Katie, you're so, this way, or you're so you're so sensitive, or like, why don't you like Christmas, or why don't this, or why don't that? And I was like, you wouldn't fucking like Christmas too if every year, your parents were fighting in front of the Christmas tree and someone was knocking it down. And again, I love my parents. I'm not talking shit about them. I'm actually more concerned about other people who maybe had really good childhoods kind of judging you for your childhood that you had no control over. So you have to think about the things that drain you. Like, I don't really love the holidays, but I have realized in my older life, like as an elder, I'm like, okay, well, I can make my own holiday rituals. I don't have to do what everyone else is doing, right? I can go away on vacation for the holidays. Instead of cooking, I can opt to go to a really nice restaurant and have someone serve me, I can start my own rituals. I can create my own memories, and I can do it because I am in control of myself. And that's what being ambitious is all about, is being in total control of herself. And that also means identifying the things that drain you. I don't like small talk. I don't like loud crowds, big crowds. I don't like loud noises. I don't like over scheduling myself. I don't like to be around people who are negative or victims or just talk about the same things over and over and over again without having a way or a goal or some kind of vision on how to fix it. Because the more that you're trying to heal that inner child and the more you're around things that drain your life force energy, it's going to just take longer to do so. And the next thing that we have to do is we have to incorporate love and positive reinforcement into our everyday lives. Okay. We have to speak kindly to ourselves. We have to give ourselves grace when we fall down and fuck up. We have to spend time with people do the exact same. Like, I have to be around people who are loving and kind and empathetic and not judgmental, because I am not perfect. And no one's perfect, but I definitely am not perfect. And every time that we criticize ourselves, I want us to say 3 nice things back to ourselves. And I know that's so hard. They say, like, for every bad thing that someone said to you, you need like 30, I think it's like 30 nice things said back to you to like unbreak that thought process, which is so fucking scary. So a way to do that is to also set a time in our day to give ourselves self-care and self-love. And it was funny because I was listening to a podcast on self-care the other day, and I didn't know that the words self-care actually come from like a mental hospital, where they would say, oh, these people are in recovery for whatever, fill in the blank, like mental disorder. And now they're doing self-care, where we're giving them responsibility to do things for themselves, like dress themselves, pick out their own outfits, feed themselves. And I was like, oh my God, here we are. We think that self-care is bubble baths and glasses of wine, but really self-care is from if you're in a fucking mental institution. Okay. So I think that showing yourself love and just giving yourself every day, say, okay, I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do my breath work. I'm going to put lotion on my body after I get out of the shower. Or I'm going to go get a pedicure or a manicure, or even just like be in quiet. Go and do something that lights you up, right? Garden, hike, spend time with friends who are just healthy individuals. That's so important. But I think it's really funny how one mean thing, you need the 30 things back said that's sweet and kind and loving. So when we say things like, oh, you're so fucking stupid, or you're so dumb, or you're so fat, you're so ugly, you're so whatever, why did you say that? Like, sometimes I'll go to a party and I'll like overshare because I had like a couple drinks, or I'm like super nervous because a lot of people don't know this about me, but I have severe social anxiety. People are like, you're like the life of the party. I'm like, it's an act. It's masking. It's hypervigilance and masking. But if we do say something bad about ourselves, let's pinky swear promise to each other that we're going to say 3 nice things back to ourselves. I think that that's just a nice little bicep curl mentally for ourselves to become stronger. The next thing that we have to focus on is safety and security. A lot of parentified children that are adults now don't feel safe and they don't feel secure. They're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're always waiting for the drunk, angry parent to come home, or for the mom not to pick them up at school, or whatever. Okay. So creating a space that you can go to and feel safe and secure is so important. And creating safety in our lives by prioritizing our own financial health and physical health, energetic health, spiritual health, etc., mental health. It's so important. And we have to create and honor our boundaries around that space. Okay. The next thing is emotional health. We have to allow ourselves to feel and experience emotions and remind ourselves that our feelings are normal reactions to how we grew up. You know, there's no sense of feeling like a loser or a failure or not enough. It's all about healing. It's all about ascending and evolving and leveling up and just trying to be a little bit better than we were yesterday. And one of the things that I have been saying to myself a lot in this year is the thing I'm about to think, is the thing I'm about to say, or is the thing I'm about to do going to get me closer to or further away from the person that I desire to be? I don't want to be a hot mess. I don't want to be a hyper-vigilant head case. I don't want to have social anxiety. I don't want to be such an empath that I literally cannot go outside of my home because I'm afraid of like breaking down. I don't want to be all those things, but parentified children have created this wall around them, and they're almost like the boy in the bubble where they're like, don't get too close. And I just don't think that that's how you lead a full life, by keeping everyone around you at arm's length and telling everybody about what triggers you. I mean, if I told people what triggers me, I'd be here for fucking 10 years telling you guys. But what is the point of that? Am I going to live my best life if all I do is think about all the bad things that could happen and all the triggers that may happen, and then I like never leave the house and I become some fucking weird agoraphobic shut-in? Like, that's not what I want for my life. And I'm sure that that's not what you want for your life either. So I'm going to challenge you, okay, to truly do one thing a day to reparent that inner child, to really give yourself that attention that you desire that maybe you didn't get. And it's not because your parents were bad or your caregivers were stupid or they weren't, they didn't have their shit together. Some of them were just literally trying their best. They may have come from a generation or an ancestral line that just didn't know what the fuck that they were doing. And you can be the ambitious bolt cutter of those chains. You can heal your lineage. And I always say, and I say this in my book, Ambitchious, I truly believe that when you step into your power and you heal yourself, you not only heal 7 generations that came before you, but 7 generations that will come after you. And the other thing I think is very interesting is when your grandmother is pregnant with your mother, you're also within your mother. So all 3 of you women are together. So whatever happens to your grandmother happens to your mother and is passed down energetically, generationally, ancestrally, epigenetically. Like it's crazy. And it's actually becoming a science. So it's not just like this woo-woo bullshit thing that I'm saying. It's actually real deal. So I hope that this helps. I hope that me sharing what I've gone through in my life, and I didn't really share. I just scratched the surface because I do want to protect the people in my lives because, I love them and they were trying their best. But I also want people to understand, like, yes, I am so successful. And yes, I do have my shit together. but there are days when I'm one fucking nutty buddy away from ending up in the loony bin. And I'm not trying to be fresh. I mean that. Like, I have really hard days and I struggle a lot with anxiety and depression and melancholy and nihilism. And sometimes I'll like look at the world and I'll be like, this fucking place is so absurd. Why did I choose to come here? But I obviously know that my soul chose to come here because I have a mission and a purpose. And part of my mission and purpose is to come here week after week on my podcast, just show up with all of my clients on the Ambitchious app and educate them and empower them and entertain them and motivate them and give them tools, or to do my one-on-one coaching with my women business mentors or people that are trying to heal, and teaching classes at Katie Boy's Misfit Club and writing my book and doing speaking engagements and doing collaborations with other people whose, deepest desires is to help people evolve and wake the fuck up. And that's why I'm here. And I fight it every day. But I do take radical responsibility for who I am as a woman, and I want all of you out there in Ambitchious land, no matter who you are, to take that radical responsibility to also heal. And I love you, and I'm proud of you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for spreading the Ambitchious movement around the world. If you received a lot from this podcast, please share it with all your people. There are so many people out there that are struggling. You don't know that just maybe sharing a podcast with someone could help them not take their own lives. I mean, this is the world that we're living in right now. And I've lost a lot of friends to suicide in the last couple of years. And it makes me just so sad that, we could just have done a little bit more for them and maybe they would still be here with us. So share this with all your people. Don't forget to tag me when you do. And I would love for you, if you thought this was great, to leave a 5-star and written review on wherever you're consuming this podcast. And I love you. And in the meantime, don't forget to stay ambitious, and I will see you next Tuesday.